podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
No breaks. No breaks. No fear. No fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along, I'm Ian Brannan, and it's great to be back with you once again for another No Breaks, No Fear. Looking back on the action from the past 7 days and looking ahead to what's on the way in the British Speedway calendar. Joining me in this episode is Dave Rowe, who you'll recognise from Eurosport's TV coverage. He was the pits reporter this last Monday night. And I'm also joined by Ryan Guest, who, if you are a Birmingham Brummies fan, a Sheffield Tigers fan, or a Kings Lynn Stars fan, you'll recognise from the centre green announcer's microphone, but also a reporter as well, who brings us lots of interviews, including in this particular episode, but he's going to give us a bit of insight into what's been going on in the Championship this week as well. We're going to look back at that action from Vauxhall Monday night then. We're going to be hearing from the Wolves captain, Rory Schlein, who had a great comeback from injury.
At the end of the day, everyone fought for everything, so and I think that showed, that Ipswich was doing the same, so that's why it come down to a last seat decider.
And we're also going to speak to British youngster Jordan Palin, who I think it's safe to say has had a pretty decent week in Speedway.
I'm just trying to progress as quick as possible, but as steady as possible too, and stay consistent.
We'll also hear from Rob Lyon, Simon Stead, Scott Nicholls and Max Clegg, all on the way on No Breaks, No Fear.
No breaks, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along then to No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast. And as we move from June into July, the season surely is picking up a little pace now. Joining me to look through the action from the recent meetings and look ahead to what's coming up over the first week of July is Dave Rowe, who you might have seen on your telly in the pits at Ipswich versus Wolves, which is the match we're going to come to first. Later on in the programme, we're going to hear from Rob Lyon as well, who was the winning team manager against Sheffield in the other Monday meeting. We'll also hear from Simon Stead, and we're going to look forward to Kings Lynn's action as well, because they're the next team to take on Peterborough at the Adrian Flux Arena on Thursday. So we'll hear from Dale Allitt, and later on we'll also catch up with Scott Nicholls, who's returning back to the Leicester Lions with Kent. Of course, Leicester still really technically the reigning champions, I suppose, so he's heading back there. We'll find out his thoughts on going back to his old stomping ground from the 2019 season. We'll hear from Jordan Palin, who's had an impressive week with his best ever scores for both Scunthorpe and for the Peterborough Panthers in the last few days, as well as heading out on some international duty as well with the GB Young Lions. Max Clegg is going to be on talking about Newcastle, and we'll hear from Ryan Douglas. That's all to come here on No Breaks, No Fear. But let's start at Vauxhall first up then, and that televised meeting that maybe you saw on Eurosport on Monday evening. Another close one, went all the way down to the last heat before things were fully sorted out. Ipswich versus Wolves. And in the pits for that meeting on Eurosport was Dave Rowe, and he's with us throughout the course of this episode. Hiya, Dave.
Hi Ian, how are we doing? You all right?
Yeah, great, thanks. Obviously, we should mention that you are thrust slightly more in the limelight than you were the last time we spoke, because people might have seen online that Steve Brandon, who was doing the pits reporting previously, has had a little bit of an accident, and we wish him well, and he's on the mend, we understand. But in the meantime, you're holding the microphone in the pits at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Best wishes to Steve, of course. No one wants to see what happened to him with a pretty serious knee injury, and obviously it's not good personally or indeed for your work when that happens, because you're completely out of action. But yes, there has been a bit of a general job swap around the Eurosport team, and so for the last couple of meetings I've been in the pits, very much in the thick of the action. It does get very busy down there, but the riders and the team managers are very, very helpful in terms of giving up their time and coming to talk to us when we need them, basically, and pretty rewarding stuff. But yeah, very busy indeed.
And as for the meeting last night, I mean, Ipswich have had a bit of a wobble as far as their season's concerned. Wolves also took a few knocks, didn't they, over the last few weeks? But it seems to be improvement from both sides. It went all the way down to the final heat, and it was certainly not a meeting without its moments of incident.
First bend incident, start line, jumping, tapes exclusions, call it what you will. Very busy indeed. And of course, there was the drama before Heat 15, or the rerun of Heat 15, when Sam Masters was making all kinds of signals to the pits because he felt his something in his rear wheel, his tyre was loose, it's rubbing against something, and they had to change the back wheel under the 2-minute time allowance, and just about made it for that restart. So yeah, lots went on. Wolverhampton were the better team. They worked their way back into the meeting after a slow start. And certainly when Leon Flint began to pick up points against some of the Ipswich lower order, you could kind of see the meeting turning. And then when Sam Masters and Luke Becker got a 5-1 in Heat 11 to put them in front, I always felt they'd just about do enough. And as it turned out, they did enough for all 4 points.
Yeah, that tyre change was particularly exciting. I think Kelvin and Nigel. I mean, Nigel I think was on the fence, but Kelvin was pretty sure that they weren't going to make it, and it was a bit of a tough ask. But he had the entire pit crew out there, and they managed to get it done. And literally with a couple of seconds left, he was at the tapes. And as it was, as you say, the race then got rerun again, didn't it? So they had the extra 2 minutes to actually double check everything. But it did seem to all work out, and he did make the start. Yeah,
they must have been fairly confident. They did have another spare bike of another Wolverhampton rider out there at the time, although whether he'd have had time to jump off one, because he got to about 5 seconds, so whether he'd actually have time to have switched, I'm not too sure. There must have been some confidence and some fortune, and certainly talking to Peter Adams afterwards, he was very relieved indeed to see his rider make the start line. So it all added to the drama for TV, and then obviously Sam Masters and Rory Schlein went out and got the 5-1.
Yeah, Peter Adams was. I think he was saying this saved him a heart attack. I think was he looking a bit agitated during that time.
Yeah, because there's not really a lot he can do. And to be fair, of course, if your rider says he has a problem with his bike and is not comfortable on it, they have to make that change. But obviously, they were confident enough in switching that wheel. It's interesting. There's been so much talk about tyres in recent weeks, and the teams now actually get two spare tyres to use at most venues. So there are actually 9 tyres per 7 riders in a team. So you have to be careful as to what you've used and which wheels you can use and where those tyres are. So there's a lot to think about in a short space of time. But the bottom line is Sam Masters was not happy with that bike, wasn't confident about going into a rerun with it as it was. And I think, Peter Adams, you have to trust your rider and you have to trust your pit crew and say, get on with it, get it done. And he did.
Oh yeah, they got it done, and of course led to getting the whole job done for the Wolves as well. Let's hear from Wolves team captain, of course, who's just made his return back from injury as well. Rory Schlein. He's been speaking with Mike Taylor from BBC Radio WM.
Rory, that was a terrific result. You must be a proud captain.
Yeah, it was a gutsy night from everyone. We needed a good result tonight. You know, our last 2 away matches ain't been great. Obviously, you know, with me come back in the side, you know, just gives it that little bit of boost. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, everyone fought for everything. So, and I think that showed, you know, that Ipswich was doing the same. So that's why it come down to a last seat decider. And, you know, the riders around here are very slick. So, you know, we just, I think, momentum-wise, hopefully we'll get a good run of home meetings now. You know, we'll go on a good run.
Well, there were some really testing moments in that meeting. I mean, but both teams were pulling very hard. We saw, you know, some great overtaking, 1 or 2 mistakes. There was a lot happening. Yeah,
I think nerves was definitely shown, especially in the last one. You know, a lot of people moving at the start tonight. I got caught out, you know, from someone moving, but it's Speedway, you know, and it just adds to the excitement, and that's why people pay their money to come and watch it.
We saw Sam leading the way tremendously. He now looks like a very, very strong rider in this league.
Yeah, you know, he was saying he needed that, you know, good result after yesterday. He said he didn't have a good one, but Sam's, you know, he's a class act. You know, there's a reason why he's number one, and you know, he has been scoring big points everywhere. So, you know, the whole team, you know, more or less rode pretty well. We just got to get Brock firing on all cylinders if we can. We know what he's capable of because he started the season so well. So, you know, everyone has their ups and downs. So, you know, he'll pick himself back up, and hopefully, you know, like I said, a few run of home matches, you know, will boost his confidence.
Yeah, he's a big talent. I just want to ask you quickly a view on Leon Flint, because he's suddenly got a big chance and he really stepped up tonight.
Yeah, you know, you got to remember Leon's a young lad, you know, and you know, he was only saying the other day, you know, his dream come true to race in Poland, and now our dreams come true. He's racing in the top flight in England. So, and for him to get his first win and the way he did, you know, he rode really well. I know he was a little bit, a bit disappointed in his last one, but that's all to do with learning, and he'll only improve. I've worked with him.
Experiences are what he needs, Rory, aren't they? They build him up quick.
Definitely, and meetings like this he'll feed off, the intensity, the nerves, the atmosphere. So. I think we're in a good position, that's for sure.
So that's Rory Schlein, the Wolves captain, speaking with Mike Taylor from BBC WM after the Monday night fixture. And I think there were a few standouts for the Wolves. Obviously, first of all, great to have Rory Schlein back in the team. But Leon Flint, he had that one appearance a couple of weeks ago with Wolves, and it wasn't the easiest night for him. But getting his first Premiership win with Wolves on the board last night, and you could see that gave him confidence straight away for his subsequent rides.
Yeah, Leon's been a rider to take note of for a while now. I saw him come through at Birmingham in the National League at the age of 15 when he showed the talent he has. I think the year off in terms of league racing last year obviously didn't help many people, and it didn't help Leon, and really he would say himself that last year did not go to plan in terms of the racing he did do. But clearly been a refocus over the winter, determination to get fully fit and set up, and now he's reaping the rewards. Him coming into the Wolverhampton side, whilst it was disappointing for all of us to see Tom Bacon call it a day, but someone like Leon is exactly what the Rising Star programme is all about, designed to do. And then you mentioned, he guested for them at Peterborough a couple of weeks ago, and as we've seen in the last few weeks, actually racing away at Peterborough is probably one of the toughest things you can do, so don't read too much into that. What I was impressed with last night was the way he read the conditions and improved as the night went on. When you bear in mind that Ipswich got a 5-1 in Heat 2 over Leon Flint and Brock Nicol, and Leon then went on to score 6 points from his remaining rides, beating several of the Ipswich middle and lower orders. So that shows he was learning, understanding how the track was changing, and I think they've got an exciting year, and I suspect more, because Wolverhampton tend to stick with their riders, and I think you'll see him develop at Wolverhampton over the years to come.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make, because Wolves are not known for chopping and making wholesale changes, are they? And he's done so well for Berwick, because until now he was riding for the Bandits and the Bullets, and he's had to drop the National League in order to be able to ride in the Premiership, which is something that was a big choice for him because it's up where he lives. Obviously, the family are invested in that team as well. So it's a big leap for him to wave goodbye to Berwick, and a team that he knows very well, to go and race for a team like Wolves. But they are going to look after him, I think, aren't they? It's a good move.
Yeah, I think career-wise you have to do it. You have to move on. Leon has done plenty of National League. Berwick in the National Development League have done half their season already this year. Yes, he was the main man there alongside Kyle Bickley, but progression happens, and at some point the rule has been put in for this year, it may have been for last year as well, that you can't do all three leagues, which was done, of course, with Ellis Burks in 2019 when he won all three titles. But I understand why that's taken place. Leon is still very much part of Berwick in their senior team with the Bandits, where he's been racking up points at reserve, and I'm sure that whenever he's available to be with the Bullets in the pits, he still will be. So he's still a massive part of that club, but you can't stop the progress. And to get that chance in the Premiership when he was probably just about in that group bubbling under the six who got picked in the first place, where he's now taken his chance.
And on the other end of the spectrum, when we look at Ipswich, and Jason Crump, of course, is a modern-day legend. There's no hiding that. And it was his first meeting back after that injury, that was 8 ribs or so that he injured in that fall at Wolves a few weeks ago. And he feeling the effects of that clearly still, and he wasn't 100%, but you wouldn't expect that the first match back from injury.
Yeah, indeed. It was a tough night for Jason and for Ipswich as a result. And obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how experienced you are. I think you probably always surprise yourself in how intense the competition becomes when you're coming back from injury, especially rib damage. And we all know if you damage your ribs, when you start trying to move your body and twist your body like you have to on a speedway bike, it's not going to be easy. And so maybe hindsight might say, well, should he not have ridden, and should they have used a guest or whatever? I put that to Richie Hawkins afterwards, and he felt Jason had made the right decision to ride, and that with a further week before the next meeting, that will do him good. You only know until you actually do it, you won't find out. What I did find a bit peculiar was that he was clearly struggling after Heat 6, his second ride, he was pulled out of Heat 10 and then returned for Heat 13, which with the very best will in the world in all respect, up against a flying Sam Masters and Rory Schlein, that was always going to be a big ask. I was a little bit surprised, if I'm honest, that he wasn't pulled out at the halfway stage of that meeting.
Yeah, I suppose you don't really realise exactly where you are in the course of your recovery until you try it out, though, I suppose. But as you say, Heat 13 is certainly one of the toughest heats of the night, isn't it? It
is. You're always going to be going up against, always the opposing number one and generally another heat leader as well. So it's not going to be easy. And that's not the only reason why Ipswich lost last night. Obviously, Jason Crump only scoring 3 points in an 8-point defeat. It does make a big difference. Jake Owen, for some reason, because he's a good rider, didn't have anything like the kind of night he'd have looked for. What I find peculiar about Ipswich, and it's something I'd picked up on social media in the weeks before. I'd not been to Foxhall this season, but I know Ipswich supporters have been talking about how their riders struggle to read the Foxhall track and actually find themselves getting overtaken by visiting riders, which is not normally the case. Normally you'd expect to see the home riders doing the bulk of the overtaking. But that was the same again last night around the outside. It was Wolverhampton riders making moves. And I found that surprising. You look at that league table. Ipswich went away last week and picked up very decent away points at both Peterborough and Sheffield. They'll have been happy enough with that. Last heat deciders, kept it tight, picked up league points. But then they wreck it all by losing at home. And their home record reads 1 win, 1 draw, 3 defeats. It's absolutely extraordinary for the team that they still have, and something they have got to fix in the second half of their campaign.
Yeah, that's Ipswich versus Wolves then, which happened on Monday night. Moving on to the other fixture, which was also happening at the same time on Monday, was at Peterborough. It was Peterborough Panthers against the Sheffield Tigers. Peterborough, of course, climbing back to the top of the Premiership table with a win against Sheffield. Before we get into the meeting itself, and there was a lot said about this Dad's Army, the experienced side of Peterborough, but I think to anybody who has any experience of Speedway, looking at the lineup they've got, 3 former Grand Prix riders in your side, and a huge amount of experience elsewhere as well. And then, of course, the exciting talent of Jordan Palin, who we're going to hear more from later on in this episode of the podcast. That's actually quite a wise move, and there's some sensible heads there. As long as they all stay fit, they've got a huge amount of experience to be able to ride out this season and do very well, which is exactly what they're doing now.
Yes, Peterborough is probably the success story of the Premiership so far. Obviously, Bellevue are flying high as well, but the team selection was interesting. Obviously, we've heard, in fact, even on parade, they actually get introduced to the Dad's Army theme tune. So it's a real tongue-in-cheek message from the Panthers as to what's going on. The gamble they took was not so much the age of the riders, but was more the fact that several of them were coming off the back of disappointing seasons in 2019, and whether that was down to just form or injury or whatever, most of those riders had 2019 seasons that they could they improve on, or was that their level now because of that age? Well, of course, then we missed 2020, and several of those boys have come back all guns blazing. Ulrich Ostergaard's been sensational at reserve. Bjarne Pedersen, after a poor first home meeting, has really been a good force. And then within that middle order, Scott Nicholls having probably his best season in the top flight for 3 or 4 years. And the likes of Chris Harris, Michael Palmtoft, Hans Andersen, they're all having their moments. And it's adding up to a combination that, well, Bellevue cracked it on night 1. But apart from that, everyone's been going to Alwerton and generally losing fairly comfortably.
Looking at the meeting itself then, the Panthers beat Sheffield 54-36, and it was a meeting that was slightly delayed by the weather, but they got things on, and Scott Nicholls led the score charts, 10+2, youngster Jordan Palin enjoying his best night at the top level with 7+1. Let's hear from the boss of Peterborough Panthers. Here's Rob Lyon.
That's June done and dusted, and what a month it's been for the Panthers.
Yeah, unbelievable. I don't know how many points we've taken in June itself, but terrific. And tonight surprised me a little. Obviously had the problems with the weather and the track and everything else, but it turned out to be a good track, and the boys just got on with it. And I thought it'd be a lot tighter, but the team spirit here is unbelievable at the moment, and we just got to keep taking one match at a time, as we always say. But terrific performance, so solid all the way through, and my man of the match was Jordan Palin, the way he rode tonight. He's taken his form from Checo to Scunthorpe to Peterborough, and long may that continue.
Yeah, you mentioned the delayed start, the track conditions and all of that. I know you've said previously as team manager you can't fully appreciate the quality of the racing, but a super race fixture between two solid teams, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sheffield they're a good outfit despite the result tonight. They'll come back stronger, I'm sure. And but we have to do what we have to do. It's our own track, and it's about what we do, and it's always about what we do because we've got the quality in the team and experience to be able to pull the results out. But like I say, and I keep saying it, and I'll still keep saying it, at the moment it's still early days, and we need to keep our feet on the ground and just keep winning, just keep doing what we're doing and keep taking one match as it comes. And Kings Lynn Thursday, next one, go from there.
Still early days, but when you look at the way the fixture list had panned out, and with such a run, such a succession of home meetings, it was always going to be a crucial period that could really have a big say in things.
Yeah, it was. I think the very first fixture against Bellevue, we were unlucky to lose that meeting. Bellevue will have their own arguments about that, obviously, but we lost 4 or 5 points in that meeting through punctures, and that would have swung it at least to a draw. But that's gone, finished. We moved on, and from that point on, we've just gone on a run, and it's great and very enjoyable to be a part of. And all the boys are, they're really coming to the party.
Yeah, and like you say, it's a new month on Thursday. Nevertheless, it's just another fixture, as you say, but certainly one for the supporters. If you could get an away win at Kings Lynn like you did at Ipswich a few weeks ago, they certainly will be over the moon.
I'm sure they will, and that's what we'll be aiming for. There's 4 points up for grabs on Thursday, and we're going for all 4. We have to. That's the mentality. We've everybody wants to win, and I'm sure Kings Lynn will have their own say on that. And but that's up to us, isn't it? If we do our jobs, then hopefully we can come out of the meeting with something.
Many thanks for speaking to us as always, Rob.
No worries, thanks.
Rob Lyon saying that he was surprised by the meeting, really. Maybe perhaps expected it to be a tighter affair against Sheffield. And of course, Sheffield with a couple of ex-Peterborough Panthers in their number in the form of Adam Ellis, certainly has ridden there, and Jack Holder. Are you surprised as well that it wasn't a closer affair in the end?
I was very surprised with that result, because if I had one question mark over Peterborough before the season, it was that I thought there would be certain visiting teams who would have riders who would go there and win multiple races and score maximums. And the Sheffield team would have been one I'd have put down to be doing just that. Jack Holder used to ride for Peterborough in the Championship. Troy Batchelor rode for Peterborough many years ago now in the old Elite League. Adam Ellis, we know what a good rider he is. And I thought that sort of team with those top 3 could do a lot of damage around Peterborough. But as it turned out, Jack Holder and Adam Ellis scored pretty well. Troy Batchelor had 2 last places, and the rest of the team didn't really fire. And it all adds up to a big home win. And you can tell the confidence in Rob Lyon, what they've gained over this run of home wins, when he's talking about going away and trying to get 4 points on Thursday. When you look at, quite often you'll hear team managers talking about going away and making sure they get at least a point, and he's saying, no, we're going away, going for all 4. They feel confident and they're on a roll.
And for Sheffield, there's no respite really, because next up at home they've got Bellevue, and Sheffield have been doing pretty well at home, but perhaps maybe not quite as convincing as some fans might hope. And then a trip away to Wolves next Monday. Are the Sheffield faithful maybe getting a little bit nervous in how things are going, perhaps?
Yes, I think so. And I think, although they may not admit it in public, I would suspect that the management may be thinking that way as well. They are, as you say, in 5th place in the table. The Ipswich 4th place is something of a false position, bearing in mind the number of matches they've raced. So, yes, Ipswich and Kings Lynn in many ways are actually some way adrift, bearing in mind the home matches they've lost. So Sheffield's position is not that bad, because they've won their home matches so far, albeit not totally convincingly. But they will be somewhat alarmed by that kind of defeat at Peterborough, because they'll be saying, well, if we go there, for example, in a playoff, if we finish even 4th in the table and go in the playoffs, well, that's no good. So I don't know if there'll be knee-jerk reactions, but there will definitely be, I would think, talk behind the scenes at Sheffield. There's one issue they have to resolve clearly, which is the Josh Bates issue. Is he fit? Is he coming back? He's had so many crashes again this season. Is that going to be continual? Have they got to find somebody else in that position? And then trying to find some consistency amongst, obviously, that on paper very powerful top three, and the likes of Justin Sedgman, James Wright below that. So I think there are questions for Sheffield. Whether it's a time for panic moves just yet, I don't know. But that meeting on Thursday may tell us a lot more when they're at home to a very strong Bellevue team.
Well, let's hear from the Sheffield team manager right now. Here's Simon Stead.
We're a little bit weak in certain areas. We'll work with the team and we'll try our best to try and get more points in the areas we need to. I still feel we're a little bit rusty as a team, but we can gain a bit of momentum now. I think as we gain some momentum, get some more meetings under our belt, I think we'll be even more powerful. Speaking to the boys, they are rusty and they're wanting more meetings. So the fact that they start coming now, Monday, Thursday, they're all looking forward to that, and they're as confident as me that we can get points on the board, and it'll start looking very different very quickly.
So the Sheffield boss there, Simon Stead, well, clearly he knows that things aren't quite going perfectly with the Tigers, but as you say, there's one or two obvious things for them to look at. And next up, Bellevue, and that's going to be always a big match because it's got more on it than just racing against a great team. It's the Yorkshire-Lancashire thing, so there's that riding on it for a lot of the fans as well. It's one of the traditional derbies in Speedway, which is great to have back, and it's the sort of fixture that the Sheffield fans would be pleased more than anything really about being in the Premiership about.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's a meeting that was so historic, dating back, and it hadn't been run really since the late 80s. If you just ignore the couple of years in the 90s when it was the all-in-one league, and it was great to have Bellevue Sheffield on the opening night of the season. That was the first TV fixture, and of course Sheffield ran Bellevue really close on that night. So it's a bit peculiar how things have dismantled for them away from home since then, when they've been to Wolverhampton and struggled, and then had that bad night at Peterborough too. So getting back on their home track where they have won their first couple of matches, but against a Bellevue team who I think will go well at Sheffield, that will be a very big test, and certainly bragging rights, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of Bellevue fans making the trip as well. Promises to be a really good night at Allerton.
So that's the next match at Allerton on Thursday for Sheffield and Bellevue. And another fixture on Thursday is at the Adrian Flux Arena. We've been talking about Peterborough. They'll be looking to continue their form at the top of the table, but they're taking on Kings Lynn, which is another fairly local derby as things go for Peterborough Panthers fans. Let's hear about Kings Lynn's preparations for that match then. Here's Dale Allitt speaking with Ryan Guest.
Well, Kings Lynn promoter Dale Allitt, I know we said it last week, but once again another massive night for the Stars on Thursday night, local derby against Peterborough, and time to put the wrongs to right, I guess.
Yeah, massive for the club, massive local derby, and we say about the big derbies in football, Man United, Man City, well, this is just as big. Ipswich like to think they're the big, guys in the east, but they don't come close to this one, to be fair. So looking forward to it, and we just need to put all the wrongs to rights and get a win.
Yeah, when you look at the form of the two sides, Kings Lynn and Peterborough, you would suggest it's only going to go one way, but that's the beauty of Speedway, I guess.
Any sport with a local derby, it kind of goes out the window. The boys just got to be up for it. We've the last few meetings at home, we've not started well at all, and by about heat 8, it's not over, but we're certainly not in a good position. So we need to start well. I'm sure Rob will have the boys fired up, and I'm sure Peter will do the same. So that's what it's all about. It's hopefully good racing. Weather looks good, so I'm sure we'll get a good crowd as well, cheering on both sides.
Kings Lynn debut for Cameron Heaps, but some injury concerns going into Thursday again for the Stars, and certainly not getting easier on that front.
No, it's been a difficult season so far with one thing and another. Thomas has stretched some shoulder ligaments, so he's out, but we got Rory Schlein in, so that's a good guest, because I think best we could have got out of the situation. Eric got hurt Lancashire on Sunday and looks like a dislocation of the shoulder joint, so he needs a scan on that. Hopefully it's only a couple of weeks. But with Cam coming in, he rides Kings Lynn well. I think he got 30 points in 2019 in the two meetings there, so I'm sure he'll go well. And like I say, they just got to be fired up. It's you only get these meetings a couple of times a year, so you've got to make it count, and we need to start winning at home desperately.
Kings Lynn have made a number of changes from their original lineup at the start of the season, as we know, and some of those have been enforced by injury, but they've been playing catch-up quite a lot, haven't they? And that goes back to really the first match of the season against Ipswich, where they were significantly down after the first few heats and then spend the rest of the meeting chasing the game, really. And that's really certainly something that they need to avoid for the future meetings to get themselves back on an even keel.
Yeah, it's the amount of points they've not been scoring, mainly in the first half of meetings. He made the point about they're not starting well, and that's an understatement, really, because in all 3 home matches so far, there's been an absolute cascade of 5-1s against them at home in the first half of the meeting, and you're never going to win meetings like that. We know all about the changes that they've made at Kings Lynn, and he's mentioned there, Dale, again, that they've got issues with Thomas Jorgensen injured. They've got a good guest on Thursday in Rory. They've got Eric Riss, looks like he's on the sidelines for a couple of weeks, so it doesn't get any easier, and they're facing this very, very strong, solid Peterborough side, who I think are going to go there feeling they can do something. Kings Lynn's season, in many ways, hinges on these next 2 meetings when they race Peterborough at home on Thursday and Ipswich on TV home next Monday. 3 home defeats so far. They've absolutely got to start winning these meetings and then start picking up some points on the road, or it's going to be just a disappointing run throughout the second half of the season.
For the meetings coming up then in the Premiership, Kings Lynn versus Ipswich, as you mentioned, on Monday, and that's the TV fixture on Eurosport. And the other one will be Wolves versus Sheffield, and the tough matches keep coming for Sheffield. We've talked about their plight already, but heading down to Monmore's never an easy place to head.
Yeah, that won't be easy, and they had a tough meeting there earlier in the season. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that was the last meeting to take place at Monmore a few weeks ago. It's great to have Monmore able to be reopened in front of, I would say, a more sensible number of spectators, because you look at the gaps on the terraces the last time Wolverhampton raced, which was the TV meeting against Sheffield at Monmore Green, and we all know the restrictions that we are having to work with and the reasons why they are in place. But sometimes you get the feeling that it's not really an even playing field where you are in the country or what sport you're working with. And some of those gaps on the Wolverhampton terraces were absolutely incredible. So it is great to see the work that Chris Van Straten has done with the local council and with the stadium owners to get a more realistic audience in for next Monday. I am sure they will come out and support it because Wolverhampton are going well. But as far as Sheffield are concerned, they had a bad night there a few weeks ago, and they've got to use that meeting as a chance to really get their away form back on track.
On the way then, we're going to turn our attention to the Championship, and lots to bring you, and some big interviews too. We're going to hear from Scott Nicholls, who's heading back to his old stomping ground of Leicester when Kent are the visitors. We'll hear from Scott on that return trip. We've also got Jordan Palin, who's going to be reflecting on his best ever score for the Scunthorpe Scorpions. And we did that interview before he then went on and got his best ever score for the Peterborough Panthers. He's had quite a week as Jordan Palin. We'll hear from him and much more to come here on No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
I'm Ian Brannan. I'm joined by Dave Rowe, who you'll recognise from Eurosport's coverage of British Speedway. He was in the pits on the Monday night fixture at Wolves. And also joined by Ryan Guest, who is a voice that you'll recognise, especially if you're a Sheffield fan or a Birmingham fan, and I think sometimes a Kings Lynn fan, because he does the centre green announcing as well. He's everywhere. Hi, Ryan.
Hello. How are we doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. So, are you the kind of centre green announcer that does chants to whip the crowd up, or is that not your role?
Let's put it this way. I think I attempted it once at Perry Bar, and Dave Rowe is in charge of the volume control, and my mic was muted for the next 10 minutes. So I don't think I've attempted it since. Put it that way.
Yeah, but Birmingham's quite a long one to give us a B. It sort of goes on.
But to be fair, that is the one place where it does work.
It does
work. Give us another M. There you go. They love it at Perry Bar.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, we've got the Birmingham announcing dream team with us, because Dave's in the box and Ryan's on the centre green. But you'll have heard Ryan a number of times on the podcast because he does lots of the interviews at the meetings as well. And I think you've been to, what is it, 11 meetings you've been to so far?
There you go. See, you're keeping count as well. Yeah, 11 so far.
I've got my little Ryan Guest abacus there in the corner, just keeping a tab on it. Let's hear some of your handiwork now then, first up, because you've been speaking with Scott Nicholls. You caught up with him at the Peterborough match on Monday against Sheffield. But it's a big week for Scott because he's returning back to his old stomping ground of Leicester. Leicester, the reigning championship champions from 2019, because, of course, no season last year. So by default, they remain the champions. And Scott was the captain of that team, and now he heads back with the Kent Kings to take on the Leicester Lions this weekend, and he's been speaking with Ryan about that.
Well, Scott Nicholls back in action in the Championship with 2 away fixtures for Kent this week, starting at Poole on Wednesday. Obviously a great addition to the second division.
Yeah, it is great, but going to be a tough one for us as well. We know Poole are a tough side. Whatever league they're in, they always put out a strong side. So it's going to be a tough one for us. We've had a little bit of a tough time. Obviously, it's great that Cam is back in the side, but obviously with Tom deciding to retire, we're kind of there's a big gap there for us to try and fill, really, and it's difficult. There's not really any riders there at the moment to fill that spot, so it's going to be tough for us. But you know what, it's good just to get some meetings on the road to get out of the way. Len's just happy for the team to get on and do what we've got to do. So we know it's going to be tough, but we'll go there in a positive frame of mind, do the best job we can.
On Saturday, it's going to be a bit of a special one. Obviously, you've still got a job to do for Kent, but nevertheless, going back to Leicester, and obviously everyone knows the story, what you helped the club achieve in 2019, and you've openly said that you'd have been open to going back there in 2020 if it wasn't for the TV commitments.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time at Leicester and was delighted to captain them to that success. It's been a team that hasn't had the joy of success. They've fought long and hard to get it, and so I was delighted to be part of that. And like you said, it's these things happen. It was a track I enjoyed, and the promotion and the fans and everything, but obviously with I have other commitments and something had to give. So but I'll go back there. I mean, I look forward to going there again. They've put together a fantastic side. Obviously, they're going all out to get another title in a bag, and fair play to them. But I'll be going there with the Kent Kings hat on and going there to do the best job I can.
Yeah, is it fair to say that's probably one of the toughest places to go to as an away side in the Championship?
I think they're going to be good at home, and they've got a solid team from top to bottom. So yeah, it will be exceptionally hard to go there, along with, like you say, Poole, and I think Glasgow's another one of the sides that are tough there. So, but we know in Speedway that you can never underestimate anybody. So just be interesting to see who comes out on top at the end of the year. But I think like everyone, we're just happy to be back racing.
Yeah, just finally, you've spoken about the Kent team situation there. Obviously trying to build in the second tier. You've also mentioned Len Silver, and despite his age, still plenty of enthusiasm.
Oh man, the bloke is unreal. It's still skiing at his age, and he's full of enthusiasm, and that's great. It's what you want. You want a boss that's still got the enthusiasm, and he's clocked up a few miles, but he's still got the energy there. So I'm delighted. Again, it's another guy that I've had an awful lot of respect for over the years, but never ridden under him. So I'm pleased to say that at least I get to race under him before he decides to hang the manager's belt up, and before I hang the boots up.
Many thanks for your time as always, Scotty.
No worries, thank you.
In the same way we spoke about Peterborough and them being an experienced side, shall we say, same goes for Kent. I'm not saying that Scott Nicholls is that common denominator, but it sort of is. But that experience, though, is doing them well, because Kent, I'm not sure that people really fancied Kent too much to do anything, particularly in the Championship this season. When we were talking about previewing the season and stuff like that, Kent rarely got a mention. But, they've got 4 meetings on the board so far, and that's soon to be 5, and they're sort of comfortably mid-table, bubbling along nicely. And the playoff spots are not out of reach for them if they get a roll going.
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at Kent's season so far, and it did get off to a tough start. I think the opening fixture at Glasgow was abandoned because of the weather. They did manage to get an encouraging draw away at Plymouth, and then they were leading Glasgow, just let it slip in the second half of the meeting. But yeah, finally got that first win in the second tier on the board against Plymouth in the middle of June. And they were just looking to build some momentum from there. Unfortunately, they've had 3 consecutive postponements from since then, which has blocked the run. And as Scotty touched upon there, some tough fixtures coming the way now as well.
Absolutely. And Dave, what about Leicester? Because clearly reigning champions, but they always put a strong side together, as Scott was mentioning. That's one of the things that they're known for. It's not like a world-beating team one season and nothing the next. They've been fairly consistently good over the last few years or so. And again, they're there or thereabouts. Glasgow are clearly very strong, but the rest of them are clearly in the chasing pack. And there's a long way to go still yet in this season.
Yeah, Leicester have a bit of work to do. They are strong, no doubt about that, and really ever since Stuart Dixon went in there and took charge and really reinvigorated things, along with Scott Nicholls doing a fine job as captain in 2019, that definitely transformed fortunes there. As far as this season is concerned, they've been good around their home circuit. They've struggled away. They've dropped points away that you wouldn't expect. Places like Newcastle, again, with all respect, Leicester got nothing there. Got to just 1 point at Berwick, lost at Edinburgh, and they have the issue with Ty Proctor retiring, needing to find a replacement for him, and also the fitness concerns over Josh Bates, which I touched on when we talked about Sheffield. So there are things for Leicester to sort out. What they do have as a big plus is the form of the young Thompson twins at reserve. Dan Thompson is taking enormous scalps week after week, and Joe is progressing too. So the ingredients are certainly there. If they get the right change in the middle order, they will certainly be there or thereabouts. But yeah, you mentioned Glasgow top and looking very good. Scunthorpe doing very well with their home form of late, having just brought in Adam Ellis, and that was Edinburgh's first defeat of the season in the league when they lost at Scunthorpe on Sunday. There are some really strong championship teams. Leicester will be up there, I'm pretty sure of that. But picking 4 to get through is going to be very difficult.
We can hear in a moment from Ryan Douglas, who is obviously an Australian rider who made a decision to return back to Australia last year during the pandemic, got himself a regular job and has come back to Speedway. But not every Speedway rider has found that transition quite so straightforward. And in particular, when we talk about Leicester, Ty Proctor is one who's got himself a job outside of Speedway now and finding everything a little bit difficult to balance, the working life and the home life and preparing for Speedway, which can take a day in itself, and it's a full-time job in itself. And maybe one or two riders like Ty have found that transition from normal life back to Speedway life, if you want to put it like that, a little bit of a very difficult one to manage.
Yes, very much so. I had sympathy with Ty Proctor, but understood his decision because, in all honesty, he wasn't doing himself or his teams any favours with his form, and clearly he has got big work commitments too. Whereas you flip that round to Ryan Douglas, who had a great season with Leicester in 2019 and also came into the Wolverhampton team midway through that season too, so got himself in the Premiership. And he made what turned out to be a really smart decision early last year, which was to head back to Australia at the very beginning of the pandemic. He didn't stick around to see if things might improve. He and Nick Morris and a couple of others got straight on the plane back home. Had his year back in Australia. I know he's been working hard and also carrying on riding, and then he's been able to come back this season looking even better. So everyone's got their own circumstances, but Ryan Douglas is definitely one to watch out for as a top man in the Championship and very much a race winner too in the Premiership. So he's the kind of rider we're looking forward to seeing develop even further as this season goes on.
Well, let's hear more about this from the man himself. Robin Allen has been speaking with Ryan Douglas.
How does it feel for riders like yourself? Like you spend all this money to come over to the UK and you can just go out there and have some fun with the mates that you grew up with.
Nah, it's awesome, especially after that season off in Australia with no racing here. A normal job, it definitely makes appreciate being able to come over here and race and really enjoying it and make a bit of money while you're there. So I couldn't ask for much more.
But you haven't really had much time off the bike because you were busy in Australia and you did some racing while you're back home.
Yeah, exactly. I did a fair bit of riding, especially towards the end, and had some good results. But it's obviously a lot different coming in riding, so it still took me a little bit to get back into the groove over here. But I've had definitely my best season so far and some consistent double figures. So just got to keep trying to do that now.
Now it's going to start getting busy again for you because Wolverhampton have said that they're going to be getting back racing next week. So how good is that for you?
Yeah, it's awesome. It was a bit of a shame when they pushed it back another month, the lockdown, but they've seemed to got a release of more fans now allowed to come to even the next meeting. So that's a big bonus to get back with them and I think next month's really busy, and I'm looking forward to riding a lot.
And how much is it to ride in front of these fans? And they're really passionate here at Leicester and at Wolverhampton.
Yeah, exactly. Both have great fans, and here, you wouldn't even know with the restrictions. They get a great crowd, even with what's going on. So it's awesome to have ride in front of a decent crowd and hear them cheering you on.
And you're building stuff slowly but surely here at Leicester, and you're looking to put in a title defence.
Yeah, exactly. We started a little bit slow for our standards, even though we've won matches here. We would have liked to get a few more points on the road, but I'm pretty confident we're going to be forced by the end of the season and be looking to get our titles back.
And it's all about getting the wins on the road as well.
Yeah, exactly. You need to bang some points in away, especially when it comes down to business and meeting the double headers. You need to go to away tracks and keep it tight or win, and it takes a lot of pressure off you at home then.
Thanks for your time.
No worries.
So Leicester versus Kent are facing each other 7 o'clock on Saturday at the Paul Chapman and Sons Arena. Before we move on to the next interviews, just to mention for Birmingham, because they've announced that they're going to resume their 2021 season next week, returning to action with a second leg of their knockout cup tie against Redcar, which is a story in itself, I suppose, really, where there's been appeals and what have you, but it's going back to a second leg at Perry Bar next Wednesday, July 7th. So there's the meeting, but then there's also the ongoing talks. And Dave, you can just update us on where things are at, because as we mentioned, you're involved with Birmingham. You'll be back behind the mic next Wednesday. And the key thing has been this being able to pay on the day sort of situation, walk-up payment rather than doing things online that they've been struggling with. And there's been talks going on with the City Council in Birmingham to try and overcome that obstacle in some way.
My understanding is that's not confirmed either way yet as to whether people can pay cash on the night to get in, which is a massive problem. I think it's common knowledge that the spectator base at Birmingham is one of the older in the league. There are people nowadays who still don't pay online as many people do, and some people will want to make that decision on the night, at 5:05, 6 o'clock to go to the Speedway. And that was definitely something which cost them big time when they ran a home meeting against Glasgow a few weeks ago, and the crowd was substantially down. No one can, and again, with the restrictions we're working under, everyone understands the need for what's happened, but no one can quite work out why, for example, you can't pay cash to get into a stadium, but you could pay cash to buy a drink. It doesn't make a great deal of sense, and there is space at these venues for everyone to space out. So as far as I know, those talks are ongoing, but the club has to get restarted. And if you don't restart at some particular point, you're just going to run out of fixtures, of time to run those fixtures. So credit to them for getting the show back on the road. Hopefully people will back it and get the tickets they need in advance. And I guess it's probably somewhat ironic that it was the Redcar fixture that started things off when they did have clearly all manner of issues with the track, etc. That's now being rerun next Wednesday. So certainly on that first night, it was a good night for me to be in the box and for Ryan to be on the centre green, and that will be the case again next Wednesday.
Have you got your banter ready, Ryan?
Yeah, can't wait for that one. It's certainly going to be an interesting one. As you said, Redcar have had plenty to say, and rightly so. You can see where they're coming from, but nevertheless, it's nicely poised. Just a couple of points in it, thanks to the late Birmingham fight back in what eventually turned out to be the first leg on the 4th of June. And yeah, like you say, it's going to be great to get back to Perry Bar, and hopefully the Brummies supporters are out in force next Wednesday. And
if anything changes on that, any further developments on the ways that you can pay to get into Birmingham's next fixture, we'll of course let you know at speedwaygb.co.uk. Next, let's talk about Jordan Palin, because the Scunthorpe star has had quite the week in Speedway. Travelled to the Czech Republic and qualified along with Drew Kemp and Leon Flint to the Under-19 FIM European final, which is going to take place in Latvia later this year. Only 5 could qualify and 3 Brits have made it through. He followed that up by his best ever score for the Scunthorpe Scorpions in the Championship, where he scored 16 plus 2, and then followed that up with his best ever score in the Premiership for the Peterborough Panthers on Monday night against Sheffield. So let's hear more from Jordan Palin right now. He's been chatting with Ryan Guest.
Well, first of all, Jordan, a career best performance on Sunday for Scunthorpe. Turned out to be a hectic day for yourself in the end.
Yeah, definitely. With my teammate pulling out after his first ride, I was busy 7 rides, so it was good. I got the ball rolling, it just kept going. So I don't know where it came from, but hopefully I can bring it on today and score a few points this afternoon.
Yeah, and for the Scorpions as well, ended the last remaining unbeaten run in the championship as well, and it really has been a powerful start to the season for the Scorpions.
Yeah, the team's just all clicking together now at this time of the year. We're all going good, we're all a team, and just everyone's pulling the weight. It's 1-7, we're a strong team, so hopefully we can just keep going and getting some away wins now.
Yeah, you've already shown what you're capable of, as we just mentioned, a career best performance, and certainly learning lots from some of the more experienced members in the side.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very experienced team, and I'm learning every meeting, just little tips and tricks. So yeah, it's good. I'm just trying to progress as quick as possible, but as steady as possible too, and stay consistent.
Yeah, to do that on the back of what had been a busy couple of days, travelling to the Czech Republic, and what an experience as well, qualifying with Leon Andrew through to the final.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good Great Britain riders dominated that meeting, which we've never done before, so it was a good step for GB, and hopefully we can keep doing that in future events.
Yeah, and like you say, when you compare yourself to all the other nations as well, to see that sort of dominance, claiming the majority of the qualification positions from that meeting, really is a moment to be proud of for all of you.
Yeah, definitely. We all, even though it's an individual event, we all came together as a team and we all qualified, and it was great to see the GB manager happy, and hopefully we can just keep doing it and start dominating the Speedway.
Obviously, this was always going to be a massive season for yourself. We might only be just over a month or so into it, but already must be learning loads.
Yeah, definitely. We're only a month into it, but I've done more meetings this month than I have done my whole career. So, yeah, it's definitely good being on the bike a couple of times a week and just keep rolling.
He's done more meetings this month than he has in his whole career. It seems quite a jammed June, but there is Jordan Palin, who's a hugely exciting talent, one of many, as we mentioned, that through to the under-19s final as well, which is great experience for him to do that. But how much do you think's being part of an experienced team like Peterborough really helping his development, Dave, when you see how he's been coming along?
It has to be a help if a young rider cannot learn from people like Scott Nicholls, Chris Harris, Hans Anderson, etc., etc. If they're not learning from those people who are always willing to give their time and advice when people are willing to take that advice, then you're never going to learn anything. And I'm sure that Jordan Palin has his head very much firmly switched on and screwed on, and he's taking advantage of that. And the weekend he's had is fantastic. It was great to see that result in the Czech Republic, because to see three out of the top 4 were British riders. Nathan Ablin also did pretty well, didn't quite make it through, but he's less experienced and did well. And these are the kind of meetings that in years gone by we wouldn't have been getting results like that. So it's great to see those 3 boys going through to the final. I think there's probably a bit of a message there, given that there was no seeded place for a British rider in the Under-21 World Championship this year. We know a couple of riders missed out on the qualifier because of the travel restrictions and the quarantine restrictions. So a bit of a message there to go straight to Divisov on Saturday and finish 3 of the top 4. That was fantastic. And to get to watch people like Jordan Palin and Drew Kemp and all the others that are coming through. Tom Brennan's having a good season. Watching Anders Rowe too. We talked about Leon Flint earlier, the Thompson boys. The future is very bright.
People obviously look at the top lines and see how many riders we've got in the Grand Prix and things like that, which we have 2 now, but further down the line, another 5-6 years or so, that's where this conveyor belt is leading to get us to a point where perhaps we're on a par with, or indeed in front of, nations like Denmark and Poland, and on the top stage we've got 3 or 4 or 5 Grand Prix riders potentially. Would be the ultimate dream, wouldn't it?
But Poland's the big challenge to get ahead of, because they are so strong, and whenever an under-21 rider in Poland moves up into the main body or moves out of that category, there's always people to replace them. So when they go into the under-21s this year, Jakub Miskowiak, who's having a fantastic season, will be the red-hot favourite. They've got Victor Lampard as well. And they replaced the likes of Kubera and Smektawa that have just moved up, and those are the boys that are trying to eventually replace riders like Zmarzlik and Janowski. They have a constant progression, but we are beginning to get there at the lower level. Now, at the top level, we've got Ty Woofenden, Robert Lambert and Dan Bewley, who are all scoring great points in the Extraliga. That's not happened before, to have 3 of them. We're now getting real strength in the youngsters coming through. Apart from Poland, we're ahead of every other nation in that respect. And that's a lot of work. That's credit to the work being done, not just by the riders, but by the backroom teams and the Great Britain Speedway team and the various development programmes that have gone on, in some ways unnoticed for the last 3 or 4 years. This hasn't happened overnight. It's gradually gained momentum, and you're now beginning to see the rewards.
Still to come then on No Brakes, No Fear, the official podcast of British Speedway. We're going to continue to look ahead to the fixtures in the Championship and also a few fixtures over the next 7 days in the National Development League. And we'll hear from Newcastle Diamond star Max Clegg, all on the way on No Brakes, No Fear.
No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
The official British Speedway podcast, back every Tuesday, 8 o'clock. You'll get a new one straight into your inbox. And don't forget to subscribe to whichever podcast provider you use, because if you subscribe, it means that your device is going to check more regularly. And so sometimes when we upload them, it can take an hour or two for them to arrive. So if you subscribe, it bypasses all that a little bit and sort of speeds you up, puts you down the express queue, and you'll be sure to get it as soon as it's available every Tuesday. Let's turn our attention then now to a couple of the other sides in the Championship. Newcastle have had a pretty tough start to life this season with various things. I think the COVID restrictions certainly being one, and of course their number one, Ben Barker, getting injured in the press and practice certainly wasn't ideal either. Ryan, when we talk about the Newcastle team, they have a track that they have a clear home advantage on, I think, versus a lot of the other stadiums in the country now. But really, it's the off-track stuff that's kind of done them in, with everything that happened in the lead up to the season, not even knowing if they're going to get to the tapes or not, and then having the restrictions, and then an injury to your number one. It's been less than ideal, hasn't it?
Yeah, as you said, it's been a far from ideal start to the season for Newcastle. Plenty going on off-track, as people have seen over recent weeks with different sponsorship issues. There were stadium problems as well. I think, as everyone knows, they had the problem with the team management situation, and just a lot of distractions more than anything. And even when you looked at the team, let's be brutally honest, it's not the most attractive looking team that you think is going to make any sort of challenge in the Championship. But as you said, Brough Park does appear to be one of those tracks where away teams struggle to go to. And as Dave touched upon earlier, Leicester's defeat there a few weeks ago was the perfect example of that.
And they've been getting some decent guests to fill in for Ben Barker as well. They had Stevie Worrell, who was certainly an instrumental part of that Leicester defeat by Newcastle. And if they can keep getting guests of that calibre, that's certainly going to help them up the table a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I may have dreamt it. I'm sure I read somewhere, though, that Ben Barker was targeting a comeback sooner than expected, which, let's be honest, the character of Ben Barker, you certainly wouldn't put it past him. And yeah, he can be a solid performer at the Championship. You know what you're going to get from Ben, certainly 100%. Attitude and effort, he can easily score double points. Matty Weathers, another experienced campaigner, particularly in the second division, who's a solid performer. But yeah, it's just further down the order. I think Max Clegg is currently third in their averages, and yeah, with no disrespect to Max, obviously he has been ridden in the Premiership, a superb National League rider, but to be third in a National League outfit in terms of averages, that probably does suggest where Newcastle's imbalance is, maybe.
Well, let's hear from Max Clegg right now, because he's been speaking with Robin Allen about the season so far with Newcastle.
To be fair, I wouldn't say it's been going well this year so far. It's been inconsistent. It's probably the best word. I think I scored paid 10 at Edinburgh, and I've done hardly anything since then. I think I've been getting 4 points everywhere else. So I've had a couple of issues with my bikes and whatnot, but hopefully tonight I've fixed that and get out the start and get back to winning races like I know I can.
and it's quite difficult because you look at your average and realistically there's a few riders in there that are having to ride in second string and heated position that wouldn't necessarily get protected in other circumstances if you had a bit of a stronger lineup, but you've gone with what you've gone with and you've got to make the best of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the trouble is with obviously Newcastle before COVID, we came into the season quite late anyway. Obviously they didn't know what was going on, they didn't know if they was going to be running or whatnot, but when they decided it was time to put a team together. But obviously a lot of the riders have already been signed elsewhere, so it was tough for them, but you gotta do what you can do, and they have done. And to be fair, I don't think we've got a bad team on paper. Everyone seems to be riding well, but it's just a matter of getting everybody riding well together now. We had a good win on Sunday, which that's definitely put everybody in good spirits for tonight and for tomorrow as well. So we'll just have to see what happens, but like I say, we've got a good team. When Ben comes back, I think that'll be good. And then obviously Adam's out injured at the minute, but when we can get a full 1 to 7 back again, I think we should do pretty well.
And it's very much a case this season that you've got to make the most of home advantage.
Yeah, definitely. The track changed quite a bit from 2019. It was doing a lot of work, over the last year and during the winter, and it's changed a lot. We've still got a little bit of home track advantage, but I don't think we've got as much as we used to. But we can only race what's in front of us, and the track is really good this year at Newcastle. Started off a little bit slow, the track, but last meeting was the track was brilliant, so it can only go onwards and upwards for me, I guess.
Newcastle have been very unfortunate with restrictions, with injuries, as we're hearing. Your number one going down in the press and practice and putting himself out for a number of weeks are all things that you wouldn't really plan on. The one thing that they need now, really, I think, as much as anything, is where possible, because they have got restrictions, is to get as many people as possible through the turnstiles. Newcastle, as you're hearing, they've put on as good a show as they can. They've got some great guests. They've had Steve Worrell guesting for them. They've beaten some of the big teams on their home patch as well. And really now, if you are a lapsed fan of any club, but particularly Newcastle, get yourself down there and support the promotion, because that's what they need.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the supporter back-in is key to every club in the country. Certain clubs can only run with advanced tickets. That's the agreement they've got with their local authorities. Other clubs can offer walk-ups, and that's just going to vary between now and the end of the season, I guess. But every single club needs all the supporters. I think you touched upon it there about supporters feeling safe. I can assure you, every meeting, every track that I've been to so far, everything has been set up perfectly, whether it to be with different zones and only a set number of people can stand in certain zones, face masks, whatever needs to be done has basically been done by the club professionally, set up correctly. Naturally, a bit of common sense needs to come into play from supporters themselves, but nevertheless, just get down to your local track. Some of the Speedway has been absolutely superb, and after so long away from it, it's great to see it live Speedway. And it's okay watching it on Eurosport every week. It's okay watching old DVDs, but nothing beats live Speedway in the flesh, I guess. Well, let's finish by looking at some of the places you can take in some Speedway this week. And we've talked about what's happening in the Premiership. Kings Lynn versus Peterborough, Sheffield versus Bellevue. And then on Friday, we've got Glasgow versus Plymouth. A long trip for the Plymouth fans there, but so they've got a decent team. Jason Crump possibly taking his place again in that Plymouth lineup. We know that he rode for Ipswich on Monday, so as long as he's feeling all right after that, then he'll take his place. Not sure at the time of recording. Bjarne Pedersen in the lineup as well, but Glasgow, very strong team indeed, and really setting the marker down in the Championship at the moment, aren't they, Dave?
Glasgow have been very, very strong indeed. They were a bit concerned about a couple of away performances where they fell away towards the back end of meetings. But the big thing with Glasgow, they've got points on the board early. They got a couple of away wins at Kent and Birmingham in the early weeks. It's going to really carry them through because it's going to take a very good team to get anything at Ashfield. So you can't nail down someone for a top 4 finish this early on, but I would be amazed if Glasgow aren't there or thereabouts at the end. The question with them is can they carry it through? Because, of course, they've made several playoffs in recent years, but they've never actually managed to win the championship. So they will be desperate to do so. Just brought back Connor Bailey as rising star in place of Jack Smith, so they'll want him to hit the ground running fairly quickly. And Glasgow, I'm sure, will be strong throughout the campaign.
Other fixtures taking place on Friday night. Redcar hosting Eastbourne. Some great riders on show in this one. Redcar, of course, have got Charles Wright, former British champion, in their lineup. Jake Allen and Anders Rowe, Michael Palmtoft, very strong side, taking on Eastbourne, who list people like Lewis Kerr, Richard Lawson, Edward Kennett, and some good youngsters as well, like Tom Brennan and Drew Kemp involved as well. So that's going to be a good one. And then Scunthorpe. Now, are they the surprise package in the Championship? They were playing down their chances at the start of the season. But pound for pound, they're better than anybody at the minute. They've beaten Edinburgh in the last week, who were the last remaining unbeaten side in the Championship. And Scunthorpe next take on Berwick on Friday night. This is going to be a good meeting. And Scunthorpe are certainly dark horses, aren't they, Dave?
The question will be, what will they do away from home? They've made an ambitious move by replacing Josh Orty, who is a legend of Scunthorpe and still due to stage his testimonial there. But to bring in Adam Ellis suggests that they think that with the home form they've shown, they could do some damage this season. And certainly with the numbers they've been clocking up on their own circuit, then if you go into a two-legged tie with those sorts of home wins, then who knows what can happen. So if they can go away and start picking up some points, Scunthorpe, very serious contenders. And again, what they do in the next few weeks will be very interesting, and they'll be obviously checking on the fitness too of Thomas Jorgensen. They need to get a full side, but obviously that weapon of Jordan Palin, the rapidly improving Jordan Palin at reserve, is going to help them out. And if he moves up, then somebody else will move down. So yeah, Scunthorpe definitely a team to watch.
Just jumping in there, you mentioned about the experience Peterborough have got. When you look at Scunthorpe as well, you look at their middle order in Tero Arnio, Theo Piper and Simon Lambert. You've also got that same sort of experience there, particularly for that second division. And I know, speaking to Jordan Palin, he said that is playing just as much a factor as the Peterborough experience. So maybe that's something which people have underestimated with the Scorpions this year.
Let's just turn our attention before we finish then to the National Development League, because we've had a week or two really where there's been not much action in the NDL, but there's a few meetings coming up this week. And first up on Friday, Armadale versus Leicester is one fixture, and these are two sides that are up towards the top end of the National League at the moment. It's still fairly tight up there, but Leicester and Armadale are the second and third team respectively, with Berwick currently leading that table. And that should be a good meeting for anybody who is able to get down to that one, Dave.
Yes, it should. The Thompson boys rode well at Armadale last year when they raced in the youth championship, so no reason why they won't score heavily. And obviously Armadale, the battles with the likes of Nathan Greaves will be interesting. I think the whole league is difficult to read at present because a couple of the fancied teams actually haven't ridden too much. You look at, for example, Mildenhall, who I think have got a great chance this year. They've only raced once so far. That was a draw at Leicester. Eastbourne have done well on the road, but have not been able to do too much home track racing, whereas Leicester have actually raced 4 at home. So it's really hard to get a full read on this competition so far. But I fancy Armadale Leicester should be a close one, especially if the Leicester riders can win races, which with the Thompsons and Joe Lawler on his home championship track, they probably can.
Bellevue Colts take on the Kent Royals as well on Friday, and Kent have announced that Ryan Kinsley is going to be their new captain going forward, at least for this period of the season, and that's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire at the National Speedway Stadium against the Colts. But Ryan, this will be great experience for Ryan Kinsley, clearly losing his place in the Kings Lynn Stars Premiership lineup, but now being a captain in the National Development League, that's got to be good for his confidence, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, Ryan Kinsley was really looking forward to Such a big year, local side, rising star spot with Kings Lynn. That only lasted a couple of meetings, and I think realistically the Stars would have liked to have given him longer, but the situation they found themselves in, Ryan Kinsley was just a victim of those circumstances, I think. But yeah, I think when you look down the Ken pecking order, certainly makes sense to give him with the experience he's got behind him in the National Development League. And yeah, they have got a solid side, and you would imagine they're going to be there or thereabouts.
And the other part of the weekend, Mildenhall that we mentioned have had just the one fixture, and they've had a bit of a time really getting on track with any form of meeting, largely with rain-offs as much as anything else. But they face the Berwick Bullets, who are top of the league, so that's going to be a big one, Dave, isn't it? It's on Sunday for Mildenhall there to finally make some headway in their league campaign, but against the top of the table is not going to be easy.
Yeah, I think Mildenhall have a really strong side, and they were actually my pick at the start of the season to win the National Development League. And as we said, they've not had much racing so far, so they'll be desperate to get their home campaign on the go. And of course, as we mentioned, Berwick now without Leon Flint in their side, in terms of at least racing. Now he's racing in the Premiership, but it's a warm welcome back to Luke Crang, who showed a lot of promise around 5 or 6 years ago. At this level for Coventry, and also had some higher league experience too. Never quite managed to hold down a team place with clubs like Workington and Redcar. It's been associated with Berwick too. So it's good to see Luke Crang back in the sport. It will be tough for him to come straight in against a strong Mildenhall side, but I'll be interested to see how he gets on. So we're getting a really interesting meeting.
Yeah, it's interesting in the National League, isn't it, to see a few names from the past making an appearance. And you mentioned Luke Crang there, but there's others as well, particularly in the Bellevue Colts lineup with the likes of Benji Compton, for example. So it's not just young upcoming lads. There's a few more experienced hands in that league as well that can certainly help out.
Yeah, another one that springs to mind is Jake Knight as well. He openly said that this was going to be his last stab at it. He wants to give it a serious go. Certainly some encouraging early scores for the Eastbourne Seagulls in the National League, but also took a guest booking for the Eagles at Glasgow on Friday night, scored 5 points with a race win to his name, and I'm pretty sure he was on for some more if he didn't blow an engine. So, yeah, like you say, it's certainly great to see some of the older names coming back, giving it a try, and when you think of the likes of Jake Knight and that guest booking, an opportunity to get back and climb the ladder once again, perhaps.
So a busy week ahead in Speedway, action in all 3 leagues. If you're able to get out and enjoy any of those matches, please do get down there. Hopefully the weather's going to be pretty decent across the country over the next 5 or 6 days or so at the time of recording. So go down there, take in some Speedway in person. I'm hoping to get to Redcar, who are taking on the Eastbourne Eagles, and that's on Friday night. So I was going to go to the one last week, but it was rained off. So hopefully for better weather this week at my end. Ryan, how about you? Where are you heading?
Yeah, well, it's been great to have 4 successive weeks at the East of England Arena. What a racetrack it is, probably one of the best in the country. It's going to be great to get back to Monmouth Green on Monday for Wolverhampton versus Sheffield. And then, as we touched upon earlier, really looking forward to being back at Perry Bar when Redcar visit in the Championship Knockout Cup on Wednesday.
I know you were at Ollerton as well this week for Sheffield and Bellevue. Are you off?
Yes, Sheffield versus Bellevue. It'll be the first time I've actually experienced that fixture. But speaking to some of the locals last week, one they're really excited for. Obviously, Bellevue just about got the better of the Tigers on the opening night of the Premiership season. Sheffield obviously need to put things right after that defeat on Monday night as well, and no better way to do that than a win in the War of the Roses against the local rivals Bellevue and maintaining the unbeaten start at Ollerton.
Is Sheffield's Carvery now back open? That's the main question.
Well, the good news is that the Carvery restaurant bookings are being taken. Unfortunately, when you've got a microphone in your hand, you can't have a bit of gammon hanging out your mouth.
Yeah, that's day one at announcer school, that, isn't it? No, nothing in your mouth while speaking, please. The locals don't like it. Okay, good stuff. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I'm back on European Championship duty this weekend. Round 3 is in Gdansk on Saturday, so we're watching out for Dan Bewley and Robert Lambert in that. Dan's currently in the top 5, so terrific from him so far. That's on Saturday. Then I'm at Kings Lynn with the Eurosport team on Monday, Kings Lynn v Ipswich. And then I shall be meeting up with Ryan at Birmingham Redcar next Wednesday.
Oh, look at that. The dream team. You lucky Brummies fans, eh? What a fixture that's going to be against Redcar. My thanks then to Dave Rowe and to Ryan Guest for joining us this week. And don't forget, we've got plenty of old episodes you can listen back to as well, with some big stars from across British Speedway. They're all available right now on your podcast platform or indeed on your smart speaker. And we'll be back with another episode next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, reviewing another week's action here on No Brakes, No Fear, the official podcast of British Speedway, which is produced by Nigel Pearson Media for British Speedway. Have a great week.
No Brakes, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Sports Social Podcast Network.